Come on. Hey guys. Well, that was annoying. Yeah, that's what they said. They said 3:30, but hey, I'll take it. Sorry about that. So I'll go a few minutes longer. I was really trying to get at least to the sea voyage. Hey, what's up, Varsry? We just had Streamus interrupt us, but I saved where I closed the game, but I'm gonna go back the 8 minutes or so to here. So we can continue where we left off. I'm gonna get up real quick, give everybody a chance who was watching to get back, and just grab a drink, and I'll be right back. Hopefully the internet is stable now. It's on, we'll live with it as long as we can. Can't see. Refresh, Moose. Refresh. We're back. Everybody refresh if you're coming back in. We're back. Internet has returned unexpectedly, thank goodness. Verizon has lied to us about the duration. I mean, I guess they wanted to be safe about it. So, welcome back. And we're going to, what did we say we were going to do? I'm trying to remember what I did here. I think I just went to check on the priesties. Alright, we're going to the priest. Ah, we lost a bunch of people. Sorry, guys. That stinks. But alright. Hey. Welcome back, guys. Hey, is that Subera? Thanks for the host, dude. You guys have video before I go on? Everybody's with? Because there's a pretty good plot point here. Let me know, folks. Let me know. Moose, you got clarity? Oh. Did it go out again? Somebody talk to me. Say words. Words? No one is speaking. Hello? Okay. I'm like, somebody say words. Nobody talk to me. Thank you, Ankek. Alright, moving on.
You have returned from your trip north. It is good to see you again. I was concerned.
You're worried about little old me? That's sweet. And guess what? I kicked some alchemist ass while I was up there. Bet you didn't think I'd be able to do that.
Then you have lost your wager. I knew you would. After all, you are... I was worried because of the trouble in the West.
What trouble?
The Tyrant. They left the city all as one, the evening before yesterday, and many of the vanguard with them. I fear there are dark times ahead.
You don't mean war, do you?
War, yes. It has been an age and a half since our last war with the Tyrant. But relations have always been strained, and now, whipped into religious fervor by the vanguard, the Tyrant are thirsty for blood and for revenge. They are a people bound by violence and without honor, and easily seduced by the prospect of a holy war.
God, that's horrible. But the city's safe, isn't it? It's a big city.
Yes, but unfortunately not well armed. Marcuria has not seen war for centuries, and people grow soft, forget how to fight. It can easily be taken by a strong army, and so I fear our safety. And yours.
What did you mean when you said, after all, you are...
Forgive an old man his misgivings, April, but I should have trusted you before.
Of course you should have. With what?
With the truth. That you are the one who will watch over us for 1,000 years. That you are of the balance, and the balance is in you. That you are the one born into the heaviest duty of them all.
I am back.
You are the guardian to be.
Internet
April,
surprise return.
The 13th guardian of the balance.
No.
Big reveal.
No, that's a lie. I'm not your guardian. That's not possible.
It is certain. I had my doubts, unfortunately. It could have cost us the balance, and I made a mistake. But it is certain now. You are stronger in the balance than anyone before you.
God damn, Cortez, he didn't say anything about... If I'd known, I wouldn't have come here. I would have... I don't know what I would have done, but I wouldn't have come here.
Maybe he did not know. Or maybe he did. And he knew it would be wiser not to tell you.
That's on your
I
end,
am
Moose.
telling you
Sorry,
now
bud.
because you cannot stay here. You are too valuable. You must leave.
I don't want to leave.
You must, April. The Tyrant are gathering their forces on the border to Ireed as we speak. Come next week, this city may be under siege, and then you will not be able to leave.
Well, I'm supposed to board a ship for Elias this afternoon.
Then go. The islands are far away, and the Tyrant do not have ships. Before you go, I want to give you something to carry with you. I spent the night looking for it in the Enclave. It has been gathering dust for over 10,000 years.
Second piece.
Oh, Tobias, I can't accept anything that old.
You are not accepting it. It is yours.
Yep.
The fathers have only kept it safe for the day when the 13th Guardian would come to collect it. And now you are here. Please, take it. It is the talisman of the balance, known to but a few. It is mentioned in one text only, the Scriptures of Reunification, one of the 13 Scriptures of the balance.
What does it do?
The Scripture speaks not of its purpose, but it is yours, whatever it is. I am certain it will help you once you find its purpose. It has strong magic, very strong.
Thanks, Tobias. I really do appreciate it, even though I wish I didn't have to accept it.
You are the guardian, child. Your fate is both glorious and terrible, but it is your fate. If you deny it, you deny our future. But I have faith in you, April.
That's what I'm afraid of. What if I screw up?
The balance provides. The balance protects. Trust the balance, and trust yourself. Goodbye, and good luck on your journey.
Later, bro. Wednesday morning, August 2nd, 2209. Restrum Tobias tells me I am the guardian to be, the 13th such, and that my fate is to watch over the balance for 1,000 years. You just don't toss something like that out without warning or some consideration to the fact that I'm just a normal person. I mean, if I'd been raised knowing that someday I'd have to go to some tower in the middle of nowhere and stay there for 1,000 years, then maybe... Hey, welcome back, Moose. Then maybe, just maybe, I'd have been able to deal. Not like this, though. This is just so not fair. I mean, I had plans for my life. I have friends. Not a lot, but a few. A family. Whatever I mean to them at this point, I guess they're around in 1,000 years. Wait. A family, whatever I mean to them at this point, at least they're around in 1,000 years. At least they're around. There's a period there. I could barely see it. Sorry, Moose. In 1,000 years, there'll be nothing left for me. Nothing to remind me of me. I'll be lost and alone. I don't know if I can deal with that, but then, what choice do I really have? What choice does any of us have? Well, for those of you who may have tuned in a few seconds late, or a few minutes late, because of the restart, sorry about that. Verizon just went out for no apparent reason, and told me 2 hours, and then came back. Well, I mean, it was just a thing on their website that said my internet service was estimated to be restored in 2 hours, but then it came back 5 minutes later. So Tobias just told us that we are the Guardian, the 13th Guardian. And I think he gave us another piece to the disc, or something related to it. God damn it, did it just go out again? Okay. I buffered for a second and I got scared. So that was a pretty big plot reveal. What did he give us? And he gave us the Talisman of Balance, which is not...
The Talisman of the Balance. Tobias gave this to me.
one of the pieces, I don't think. Well, I just want to get us to the point where we're on the sea voyage, at least. But, I feel like we should go check with the, Access guy, and maybe with the library again. Before we try to get on the boat. Oh, and maybe with, what's his name? Westinghouse? I don't think that's his name. Let's start there. Nope, he's not even here.
No, I can't hold down strong liquor. Mr. Westhouse? Sir?
Westhouse.
Are you in there? I guess he's not home. He really should lock up. But then again, how many people know somebody's actually living down here? Mr. Westhouse isn't at home.
So that's where you draw the line, you won't break and enter? So I don't really want to go to the end again. I do want to go here.
Nobody's home.
Okay. It's nice of them to make this easy. Hold up.
It's a stone dragon gazing down into the center of the dome like it's guarding the entrance. It's a magnificent piece of work.
Cool. Just curious. No. I'll probably can't do anything until I have all of them. I'm pretty sure that's the gate right there. So we'll go a little late tonight, guys. It's fine.
Oh! Oh, goodness, it's you again. Oh, you gave me such a fright.
See if he's got anything
Could
new.
I see some more books?
Now that we've got some
Certainly. What is the
interesting new
question?
information.
I'm looking for some
No
information.
matter.
Marum. Oh yeah, Draken.
I'd like to read more about the Draken.
Why, of course. I will get the book you're looking for immediately.
Interesting. I don't know if this is new or not, but we'll find out. Draken. I'll try to talk to the wife tomorrow, guys, to find out if we're going to do this Sunday or the following Sunday for the American Truck Simulator stream.
I did find something of interest. I'll leave it here for you to read.
I think this is the same one. Yep, this is the same one.
Are you done? Let me take that back for you.
Yeah, there's nothing new here. So we're tapped out here. I think we can get on the boat. I'm on a boat, yo. What's Trout playing on GOG tonight, anyway? I was supposed to hear back from Outstar, but it never happened. And I just texted her messaged her on Twitter last week, but she told me they were moving and she'd get back to me, and then that is that the GOG.com team was moving headquarters, and she would get back to me, and it's been 6 or 7 weeks, guys, so I don't know what's going on, so I can't stress about it. But I was hoping to start being an affiliate and maybe streaming on GOG, but I don't know what's going on with that, so. She seemed positive about it when she talked to me 6 weeks ago, but now I'm in limbo, so. Maybe someday. I would really like to.
Finally, we are ready. And we must away before it's too late. We still have another 6 or 7 hours of daylight today. Come aboard.
I would love to fill in a few
Did I tell
late
you how
nights
much
for them.
I hate water?
No.
Well, remind me to tell you sometime.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. She didn't even get back to me, so it's cool. I mean, I'll just hit her up again in like another month or something, but, you know. I don't want to let it go and have them, you know, give the spot to somebody else if I was going to get the spot, that's all. Trout's really their only late night streamer. I would love to fill in like 2 nights a week, a couple other nights. Obviously, it'd be a lot of fun and it would be good for me, so. I think I'd be a good fit for them, but you know. Hey, we made it through chapter 5, guys. I can tell by her Twitter she's been super busy.
Oh, God, my guts have been cleaned out and I still feel sick.
Alright, so, April's diary. Thursday, late afternoon. I am so sick I'm having a hard time writing even a few words. Forgive poor spelling. Why does the boat have to keep moving around? Why can't they make boats that just stay still? I mean, they got Magi, right? Beats me. We leave port yesterday evening and I don't sleep a wink all night, just rocking all night long, and then there's the food, which is like fish and apples every meal. Oh great, here I go again, gotta get some air. Fair enough. So what is it now, 2? Alright, so that's pretty much where I wanted to get to. I had a feeling we were close to the end of the chapter, and that was what I wanted to accomplish tonight. Down below, there's the navigator, who's also steering the ship, apparently. Driving the ship? I don't know what you call it. I'm not good with maritime stuff. But I do want to get our reading stream in tonight since we have internet.
That's the cargo hold and crew quarters down there. My bed's conveniently located right below the opening to accommodate for those refreshing saltwater showers.
Helmsman, thank you, Moose. So, yeah, let's leave it here. Thanks for coming back, guys. Sorry about the interruption. Not a whole lot I could do about it, but I am sorry about it. And on your write-in ballots, write in Game Life Game for GOG affiliate / streamer. I don't think they take votes, I'm just kidding. Obviously. But just something that occurred to me. I was hoping to have that announcement made by now, but it's not happening, so. We're going to quit the game. And we're going to get into our Queen of the Sorcery, Book 2 of the Bulgarian by David Eddings. And, go from there. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. Hopefully we get an opportunity at some point. You know what I mean, guys? Let's get into reading. Doop. And I'm pretty fresh and broke, having recently taken a break. So we're just gonna pretty much dive right in. Let me just change the channel. Excuse me. Let me just change the title. For those of you who are hanging out for the reading stream. I know it's not for everybody, but we're having a lot of fun doing it, so. Boop. Variety reading and chill. Well, I didn't say I wasn't tired, but I don't need to get up and like use the bathroom or anything like usual before I do the reading stream. I'm usually getting off now, and we're going probably an extra 45 minutes or so. Which is fine, because I don't have to get up for 8 more hours, so I can do another hour and still get up in 7 hours and be okay. I just won't get to update Delve and stuff tonight, but I'm off Wednesday, so we'll definitely catch up on all that on Wednesday. Before we stream. Right, title is up to date. Second yawn. Assume comfy position. Slight rearrange of beverages. Come here. And book's upside down. Can't read the book upside down, I'm not that good. Last night we read the prologue in Chapter 1. Tonight we read Chapter 2 of Queen of Sorcery by David Eddings. Leldarin of Wildentor was 18 years old, although his ingenuous nature made him seem much more boyish. No emotion touched him that did not instantly register in his expression, and sincerity shone in his face like a beacon. He was impulsive, extravagant in his declarations, and probably, Garion reluctantly concluded, not overly bright. It was impossible not to like him, however. The following morning, when Garion pulled on his cloak to go out and continue the watch for Hedar, Leldarin immediately joined him. The young Arend had changed out of his garish clothing and now wore brown hose, a green tunic, and a dark brown wool cape. He carried his bow and wore a quiver of arrows at his belt, and as they walked through the snow toward the broken west wall, he amused himself by loosing arrows at targets only half visible ahead of him. "You're awfully good," Garion said admiringly after one particularly fine shot. "I'm an historian," Leldarin replied modestly. We've been bowmen for thousands of years. My father had the limbs of his bow cut on the day I was born, and I could draw it by the time I was 8. I imagine you hunt a great deal, Garion said, thinking of the dense forest all around them and the tracks of game he had seen in the snow. It's our most common pastime. Leldarin stopped to pull the arrow he had just shot from a tree trunk. My father prides himself on the fact that beef or mutton are never served at his table. I went hunting once in Cherik, said Garion. Deer? Leldarin asks. No, wild boars. We didn't use bows, though. The Cheriks hunt with spears. Spears? How can you get close enough to kill anything with a spear? Garion laughed a bit ruefully, remembering his bruised ribs and aching head. Getting close isn't the problem. It's getting away after you've speared him that's the difficult part. Leldarin didn't seem to grasp that. The huntsmen form a line, Garion explained, and they crash through the woods, making as much noise as they can. You take your spear and wait where the boars are likely to pass, when they try to get away from the noise. Being chased makes them bad-tempered, and when they see you, they charge. That's when you spear them. Isn't that dangerous? Leldarin's eyes were wide. Garion nodded. I almost got all my ribs broken. He was not exactly boasting, but he admitted to himself that he was pleased by Leldarin's reaction to his story. We don't have very many animals in Astoria, Leldarin said almost wistfully. A few bears, once in a while a pack of wolves. He seemed to hesitate for a moment, looking closely at Garion. Some men, though, find more interesting things to shoot at than wild stags. He said it with a kind of secretive, sidelong glance. Oh? Garion was not quite sure what he meant. Hardly a day goes by that some Mimbrate's horse doesn't come home riderless. Garion was shocked at that. Some men think there are too many Mimbrates in Astoria, Leldarin explained with a heavy emphasis. I thought that the horrendous civil war was over. There are many who don't believe that. There are many who believe that the war will continue until Astoria is free of the Mimbrate crown. Leldarin's tone left no question as to where he stood on the matter. Wasn't the country unified after the Battle of Vomimbre? Garion objected. Unified? How could anybody believe that? Astoria is treated like a subject province. The king's court is at Vomimbre. Every governor, every tax collector, every bailiff, every high sheriff in the kingdom is a Mimbrate. There's not a single Astorian in a position of authority anywhere in Erendia. The Mimbrates even refuse to recognize our titles. My father, whose line extends back 1,000 years, is called landowner. A Mimbrate would sooner bite out his tongue than call him baron. Leldarin's face had gone white with suppressed indignation. I didn't know that, Garion said carefully, not sure how to handle the young man's feelings. Astoria's humiliation is almost at an end, however, Leldarin declared fervently. There are some men in Astoria for whom patriotism is not dead, and the time is not far off when these men will hunt royal game. He emphasized his statement by snapping an arrow at a distant tree. That confirmed the worst of Garion's fears. Leldarin was a bit too familiar with the details not to be involved in this plot. As if he had realized himself that he had gone too far, Leldarin stared at Garion with consternation. I'm a fool, he blurted out with a guilty look around him. I've never learned to control my tongue. Please forgive what I just said, Garion. I know you're my friend. They just met. And I know you won't betray what I said in a moment of heat. That was the one thing Garion had feared. With that single statement, Leldarin had effectively sealed his lips. He knew Mr. Wolf should be warned that some wild scheme was afoot, but Leldarin's declaration of friendship and trust had made it impossible for him to speak. He wanted to grind his teeth with frustration as he stared full in the face of a major moral dilemma. They walked on, neither of them speaking and both a little embarrassed, until they reached a bit of wall here, a bit of wall where Garion had waited in ambush the day before. For a time they stared out into the fog, their strained silence growing more uncomfortable by the moment. What's it like in Sandaria? Leldarin asked suddenly. I've never been there. There aren't so many trees, Garion answered, looking over the wall of at the dark trunks marching off into the fog. It's an orderly kind of place. Where did you live there? At Faldor's farm. It's near Lake Erat. Is this Faldor a nobleman? Faldor? Garion laughed. No, Faldor's as common as old shoes. He's just a farmer. Decent, honest, good-hearted. I miss him. A commoner, then, Lildorin said, seemingly ready to dismiss Faldor as a man of no consequence. Rank doesn't mean very much in Sandaria, Garion told him rather pointedly. What a man does is more important than what he is. He made a wry face. I was a scullery boy. Not very pleasant, but somebody's got to do it, I suppose. Not a serf, certainly. Lildorin sounded shocked. There aren't any serfs in Sandaria. No serfs? The young Aren stared at him uncomprehendingly. No, Garion said firmly. We never found it necessary to have serfs. Lildorin's expression clearly showed that he was baffled by the notion. Garion remembered the voices that had come to him out of the fog the day before, but he resisted the urge to say something about serfdom. Lildorin would never understand, and the two of them were very close to friendship. Garion felt that he needed a friend just now, and he didn't want to spoil things by saying something that would offend this likable young man. What sort of work does your father do? Lildorin asked politely. He's dead. So's my mother. Garion found that if he said it quickly, it didn't hurt so much. Lildorin's eyes filled in a sudden, impulsive sympathy. He put his hand consolingly on Garion's shoulder. I'm sorry, he said, his voice almost breaking. It must have been a terrible loss. I was a baby, Garion shrugged, trying to sound offhand about it. I don't even remember them. It was still too personal to talk about. Some pestilence? Lildorin asked gently. No, Garion answered in the same flat tone. They were murdered. Lildorin gasped and his eyes went wide. A man crept into their village at night and set fire to their house, Garion continued unemotionally. My grandfather tried to catch him, but he got away. From what I understand, the man is a very old enemy of my family. Surely you're not going to let it stand like that? Lildorin demanded. No, Garion replied, still looking out into the fog. As soon as I'm old enough, I'm going to find him and kill him. Good lad, Lildorin exclaimed, suddenly catching Garion in a rough embrace. We'll find him and cut him to pieces. We? I'll be going with you, of course, Lildorin declared. No true friend could do any less. He was obviously speaking on impulse, but just as obviously he was totally sincere. He gripped Garion's hand firmly. I swear to you, Garion, I won't rest until the murderer of your parents lies dead at your feet. The sudden declaration was so totally predictable that Garion silently berated himself for not keeping his mouth shut. His feelings in the matter were very personal, and he was not really sure he wanted company in his search for its faceless enemy. Another part of his mind, however, rejoiced in Lildorin's impulsive but unquestioning support. He decided to let the subject drop. He knew Lildorin well enough by now to realize the young man undoubtedly made a dozen devout promises a day, quickly offered in absolute sincerity, and just as quickly forgotten. They talked then of other things, standing close together beside the shattered wall with their dark cloaks drawn tightly about them. Shortly before noon, Garion heard the muffled sound of horses' hooves somewhere out in the forest. A few minutes later, Hedar materialized out of the fog with a dozen wild-looking horses trailing after him. The tall Algar wore a short, fleece-lined leather cape. His boots were mud-spattered and his clothes travel-stained, but otherwise he seemed unaffected by his 2 weeks in the saddle. Garion, he said gravely by way of greeting, and Garion and Lildorin stepped out to meet him. We've been waiting for you, Garion told him and introduced Lildorin. We'll show you where the others are. Hedar nodded and followed the two young men through the ruins to the tower where Mr. Wolf and the others were waiting. Snow in the mountains, the Algar remarked laconically by way of explanation as he swung down from his horse. It delayed me a bit. He pulled his hood back from his shaved head and shook out his long, black scalp lock. No harm's been done, Mr. Wolf replied. Come inside to the fire and have something to eat. We've got a lot to talk about. Hedar looked at the horses, his tan, weathered face growing strangely blank as if he were concentrating. The horses all looked back at him, their eyes alert and their ears pointed sharply forward. Then they turned and picked their way off among the trees. Won't they stray? Dernick wanted to know. No, Hedar answered. I asked them not to. Dernick looked puzzled, but he let it pass. They all went into the tower, sat near the fireplace, and Paul cut dark bread and pale yellow cheese for them, while Dernick put more wood on the fire. Johag sent word to the clan chiefs, Hedar reported, pulling off his cape. He wore a black, long-sleeved horse-hide jacket with steel discs riveted to it, to form a kind of flexible armor. They're gathering at the stronghold for council. He unbelted the curved saber he wore and laid it to one side, and sat near the fire to eat. Wolf nodded. Is anyone trying to get through to Prolgu? I sent a troop of my own men to Gorham before I left, Hadar responded. They'll get through if anyone can. I hope so, Wolf stated. The Gorham's an old friend of mine, and I need his help before this is all finished. Aren't your people afraid of the land of the Olgos? Leldarin inquired politely. I've heard that there are monsters there that feed on the flesh of men. Hadar shrugged. They stay in their lairs in the winter time. Besides, they are seldom brave enough to attack a full troop of mounted men. He looked over at Mr. Wolf. Southern Sandaria is crawling with Murgos. Or did you know that? I could have guessed, Wolf replied. Did they seem to be looking for anything in particular? I don't talk with Murgos, Hadar said shortly. His hooked nose and fierce eyes made him look like that moment, like a hawk about to swoop down to the kill. I'm surprised you weren't delayed even more, Silk muttered. The whole world knows how you feel about Murgos. I indulged myself once, Hadar admitted. I met 2 of them alone on the highway. It didn't take very long. 2 less to worry about, then, Barrack grunted with approval. I think it's time for some plain talk, Mr. Wolf said, brushing crumbs off the front of his tunic. Most of you have some notion of what we're doing, but I don't want anybody blundering into something by accident. We're after a man named Zedar. He used to be one of my master's disciples. Then he went over to Torak. Early last fall, he somehow slipped into the throne room at Riva and stole the Orb of Aldor. We're going to chase him down and get it back. Isn't he a sorcerer too? Barrack asked, tugging absently at a thick red braid. That's not the term we use, Wolf replied. Yes, he does have a certain amount of power of that kind of power. We all did. Me, Beltira and Belkira, Belzadar, all the rest of us. That's one of the things I wanted to warn you about. You all seem to have the same sort of names, Silk noticed. Our master changed our names when he took us as disciples. It was a simple change, but it meant a great deal to us. Wouldn't that mean that your original name was Gareth? Silk asked, his ferret eyes narrowing shrewdly. Mr. Wolf looked startled and then laughed. I haven't heard that name for thousands of years. I've been in Belgarath for so long that I'd almost completely forgotten Gareth. It's probably just as well. Gareth was a troublesome boy and a thief and a liar, among other things. Some things never change, Aunt Pal observed. Nobody's perfect, Wolf admitted blandly. Why did Zedar steal the orb? Hadar asked, setting aside his plate. He's always wanted it for himself, the old man replied. That could be it, but more likely he's trying to take it to Torak. The one who delivers the orb to One Eye is going to be his favorite. But Torak's dead, Leldarin objected. The Reven Warder killed him at Volmimbre. No, Wolf said. Torak isn't dead, only asleep. Brand's sword wasn't the one destined to kill him. Zedar carried him off after the battle and hid him someplace. Someday he'll awaken, probably someday fairly soon, and I'm reading the signs right. We've got to get the orb back before that happens. This Zedar's caused a lot of trouble, Barrack grumbled. You should have dealt with him a long time ago. Probably, Wolf admitted. Why don't you just wave your hand and make him disappear? Barrack suggested, making a sort of gesture with his thick fingers. Wolf shook his head. I can't. Not even the gods can do that. We've got some big problems then, Silk said with a frown. Every Murgo from here to Rakgoska's going to try to stop us from catching Zedar. Not necessarily, Wolf disagreed. Zedar's got the orb, but Cthulhuc commands the Grollems. Cthulhuc? Leldarin asked. The Grollem High Priest. He and Zedar hate each other. I think we can count on him to try to keep Zedar from getting to Torak with the orb. Barrack shrugged. What difference does it make? You and Pulgara can use magic if we run into anything difficult, can't you? There are limitations on that sort of thing, Wolf said a bit evasively. I don't understand, Barrack said, frowning. Mr. Wolf took a deep breath. All right, as long as it's come up, let's go into that too. Sorcery, if that's what you want to call it, is a disruption of the natural order of things. Sometimes it has certain unexpected effects, so you have to be very careful about what you do with it. Not only that, it makes He frowned. Let's call it a sort of noise. That's not exactly what it is, but it serves well enough to explain. Others with the same abilities can hear that noise. Once Polgara and I start changing things, every Grolem in the West is going to know exactly where we are and what we're doing. They'll keep piling things in front of us until we're exhausted. It takes almost as much energy to do things that way as it does to do them with your arms and back, Aunt Paul explained. It's very tiring. She sat beside the fire, carefully mending a small tear in one of Garion's tunics. I didn't know that, Barrack said. Not many people do. If we have to, Paul and I can take certain steps, Wolf went on. But we can't keep it up forever, and we can't simply make things vanish. I'm sure you can see why. Oh, of course, Silk professed, though his tone indicated that he did not. Everything that exists depends on everything else, Aunt Paul explained quietly. If you were to unmake one thing, it's altogether possible that everything would vanish. The fire popped, and Garion jumped slightly. The vaulted chamber seemed suddenly dark, and shadows lurked in the corners. That can't happen, of course, Wolf told them. When you try to unmake something, your will simply recoils on you. If you say, be not, then you are the one who vanishes. That's why we're very careful about what we say. I can understand why, Silk said, his eyes widening slightly. Most of the things we'll encounter can be dealt with by ordinary means, Wolf continued. That's the one reason we brought you together. At least that's one of the reasons. Among you, you'll be able to handle most of the things that get in our way. The important thing to remember is that Polgara and I have to get to Zedar before he can reach Torak with the orb. Zedar's found some way to touch the orb. I don't know how. If he can show Torak how it's done, no power on Earth will be able to stop One Eye from becoming king and god over the whole world. They all sat in the ruddy, flickering light of the fire, their faces serious as they considered the possibility. I think that pretty well covers everything, don't you, Paul? I believe so, Father, she replied, smoothing the front of her gray, homespun gown. Later, outside the tower, as gray evening crept in among the foggy ruins of Owakun, and the smell of thick stew Aunt Paul was cooking, for supper drifted out to them. Garion turned to Silk. Is it all really true? He asked. The small man looked out into the fog. Let's act as if we believe that it is, he suggested. Under the circumstances, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, or it would be a bad idea, to make a mistake. Are you afraid too, Silk? Garion asked. Silk sighed. Yes, he admitted. But we can behave as if we believe we aren't, can't we? I guess we can try, Garion said as the two of them turned to go back into the chamber at the foot of the tower, where the firelight danced on the low stone arches, holding the fog and chill at bay. See how long Chapter 3 is. Yeah, we're good. Chapter 3. The next morning Silk came out of the tower wearing a rich maroon doublet and a bag-like black velvet cap cocked jauntily above one ear. What's that all about? Aunt Paul asked him. I chanced across an old friend in one of the packs, Silk replied airily. Radek of Baktor by name. What happened to Ambar of Kotu? Ambar's a good enough fellow, I suppose, Silk said a bit deprecatingly. But a Burgo named Asherak knows about him and may have dropped his name in certain quarters. Let's not look for trouble if we don't have to. Not a bad disguise, Mr. Wolf agreed. One more Drasnian merchant on the Great West Road won't attract any attention, whatever his name. Please, Silk said, objecting in an injured tone. The name's very important. You hang the whole disguise on the name. I don't see any difference, Barrack asserted bluntly. There's all the difference in the world. Surely you can see that Ambar's a vagabond with very little regard for ethics, while Radek's a man of substance, whose word is good in all the commercial centers of the West. Besides, Radek's always accompanied by servants. Servants? One of Aunt Paul's eyebrows shot up. Just for the sake of the disguise, Silk assured her quickly. You, of course, could never be a servant, Lady Polgara. Thank you. No one would ever believe it. You'll be my sister instead, traveling with me to see the splendors of Tal Haneth. Your sister? You could be my mother instead, if you prefer, Silk suggested blandly, making a religious pilgrimage to Mar Terran to atone for a colorful past. Aunt Poll gazed steadily at the small man for a moment while he grinned impudently at her. "Some day your sense of humor is going to get you in a great deal of trouble, Prince Keldar." "I'm always in trouble, Lady Polgara. I wouldn't know how to act if I weren't." "You two suppose we could get started?" Mr. Wolf asked. "Just a moment more," Silk replied. "If we meet anyone and have to explain things, you, Leldarin, and Garion are Polgara's servants. Hetar, Barak, and Dernek are mine." "Anything you say," Wolf agreed wearily. "There are reasons." "All right." "Don't you want to hear them?" "Not particularly." Silk looked a bit hurt. "Are we ready?" Wolf asked. "Everything's out of the tower," Dernek told him. "Oh, just a moment. I forgot to put out the fire." He went back inside. Wolf glanced after the smith in exasperation. "What difference does it make?" he muttered. "This place is a ruin anyway." "Leave him alone, Father," Aunt Poll said placidly. "It's the way he is." As they prepared to mount, Barak's horse, a large sturdy gray, sighed and threw a reproachful look at Hetar, and the Algar chuckled. "What's so funny?" Barak demanded suspiciously. "The horse said something," Hetar replied. "Never mind." Then they swung into their saddles and treaded their way out of the foggy ruins along the narrow, muddy track that wound into the forest. Sodden snow lay under wet trees, and water dripped continually from the branches overhead. They all drew their cloaks about them to ward off the chill and dampness. Once they were under the trees, Leldarin pulled his horse in beside Garion's, and they rode together. "Is Prince Keldar always so, well, extremely complicated?" he asked. "Silk? Oh, yeah. He's very devious. You see, he's a spy, and disguises and clever lies are second nature to him." "A spy? Really?" Leldarin's eyes brightened as his imagination caught hold of that idea. "He works for his uncle, the King of Drasnia," Garion explained. "From what I understand, the Drasnians have been at this sort of thing for centuries." "We've got to stop and pick up the rest of the packs," Silk was reminding Mr. Wolf. "I haven't forgotten," the old man replied. "Packs?" Leldarin asked. "Silk picked up some wool cloth in Kamar," Garion told him. "He said it would give us a legitimate reason to be on the highway. We hid them in a cave when we left the road to come to Voakun." "He thinks of everything, doesn't he?" "He tries. We're lucky to have him with us." "Maybe we could have him show us a few things about disguises," Leldarin suggested brightly. "It might be very useful when we go looking for your enemy." Garion had thought that Leldarin had forgotten his impulsive pledge. The younger Wren's mind seemed too flighty to keep hold of one idea for very long, but he saw now that Leldarin only seemed to forget things. Excuse me. But he saw now that Leldarin only seemed to forget things. The prospect of a serious search for his parents' murderer, with this young enthusiast adding embellishments and improvisations at every turn, began to present itself alarmingly. By mid-morning, after they had picked up Silk's packs and lashed them to the backs of the spare horses, they were back out on the Great Western Road, a Talnedran highway running through the heart of the forest. They rode south at a loping canter that ate up the miles. They passed a heavily burdened serf, clothed in straps and pieces of sackcloth, tied on with bits of string. The serf's face was gaunt, and he was very thin under his dirty rags. He stepped off the road and stared at them with apprehension until they had passed. Garion felt a sudden stab of compassion. He briefly remembered Lammer and Detton, and he wondered what would finally happen to them. It seemed important for some reason. "Is it really necessary to keep them so poor?" he demanded of Leldarin, unable to hold it any longer. "Who?" Leldarin asked, looking around. "That serf." Leldarin glanced back over his shoulder at the ragged man. "You didn't even see him," Garion accused. Leldarin shrugged. "There are so many." "They all dress in rags and live on the edge of starvation." "Mimbrate taxes," Leldarin replied, as if that explained everything. "You seem to have always had enough to eat." "I'm not a serf, Garion," Leldarin answered patiently. "Poorest people always suffer the most. It's the way the world is." "It doesn't have to be," Garion retorted. "You just don't understand. No, and I never will. Naturally not, Leldarin said with infuriating complacency. You're not a Rendish. Yarian clenched his teeth together to hold back the obvious reply. By late afternoon they had covered 10 leagues, and the snow had largely disappeared from the roadside. Should we start to give some thought to where we're going to spend the night, Father? Aunt Pal suggested. Mr. Wolf scratched thoughtfully at his beard as he squinted at the shadows hovering near the trees around them. I have an uncle who lives not far from here, Leldarin offered. Count Reldigan. I'm sure he'll be glad to give us shelter. Thin? Mr. Wolf asked. Dark hair? It's gray now, Leldarin replied. Do you know him? I haven't seen him for 20 years, Wolf told him. As I recall, he used to be quite a hothead. Uncle Reldigan? You must have him confused with someone else, Belgarath. Maybe, Wolf said. How far is it to his house? No more than 1.5 leagues away. Well, let's go see him then, Wolf decided. Beldarin shook his reins and moved into the lead to show them the way. How are you and your friend getting along? Silk asked, following in beside Garion. Fine, I suppose, Garion replied, not sure how the rat-faced little man intended the question. It seems to be a little hard to explain things to him, though. That's only natural, Silk observed. He's an Erend, after all. Garion quickly came to Leldarin's defense. He's honest and very brave. They all are. That's part of the problem. I like him, Garion asserted. So do I, Garion, but that doesn't keep me from realizing the truth about him. If you're trying to say something, why don't you just go ahead and say it? All right, I will. Don't let friendship get the better of your good sense. Randy is a very dangerous place, and Erends tend to blunder into disasters quite regularly. Don't let your exuberant young companion drag you into something that's none of your business. Silk's look was direct, and Garion realized that the little man was quite serious. I'll be careful, he promised. I knew I could count on you, Silk said gravely. Are you making fun of me? Would I do that, Garion? Silk asked mockingly. Then he laughed, and they rode on together through the gloomy afternoon. The grey stone house of Count Reldigan was about 1 mile back in the forest from the highway, and it stood in the center of a clearing that extended beyond bowshot in every direction. Although it had no wall, it had somehow the look of a fort. The windows facing out were narrow and covered with iron gratings. Strong turrets surmounted by battlements stood at each corner, and the gate, which opened into the central courtyard of the house, was made of whole tree trunks, squared off and strapped together with iron bands. Garion stared at the brooding pile as they approached in the rapidly fading light. There was a kind of haughty ugliness about the house, a grim solidity that seemed to defy the world. It's not a very pleasant-looking sort of place, is it? He said to Silk. Astorian architecture is a reflection of their society, Silk replied. A strong house isn't a bad idea in a country where neighborhood disputes sometimes get out of hand. Are they all so afraid of each other? Just cautious, Garion. Just cautious. Leldarin dismounted before the heavy gate and spoke to someone on the other side through a small grill. There was finally a rattling of chains and the grinding sound of heavy iron-shod bars sliding back. I wouldn't make any quick moves once we're inside, Silk advised quietly. There are probably archers watching us. Garion looked at him sharply. A quaint custom of the region, Silk informed him. They rode into the cobblestone courtyard and dismounted. Count Reldigan, when he appeared, was a tall, thin man with iron-gray hair and beard, who walked with the aid of a stout cane. He wore a rich green doublet and black hose. Despite the fact that he was in his own house, he carried a sword at his side. He limped heavily down a broad flight of stairs from the house to greet them. Uncle, Beldarin said, bowing respectfully. Nephew, the Count replied in polite acknowledgment. My friends and I My friends and I have found ourselves in the vicinity, Beldarin stated, and we thought we might impose upon you for the night. You're always welcome, nephew, Reldigan answered, with a kind of grave formality. Have you dined yet? No, uncle. Then you must all take supper with me. May I know your friends? Mr. Wolf pushed back his hood and stepped forward. You and I are already acquainted, Reldigan, he said. The Count's eyes widened. Elgarath? Is it really you? Wolf grinned. Oh, yes. I'm still wandering about the world, stirring up mischief. Reldigan laughed and then grasped Wolf's upper arm warmly. Come inside, all of you. Let's not stand about in the cold. He turned and limped up the steps to the house. Really? What happened to your leg? Wolf asked him. An arrow to the knee, the Count shrugged. The result of an old disagreement, long since forgotten. Once I was an adventurer like you, till I took that arrow in the knee. It doesn't actually say that, but I couldn't resist. As I recall, you used to get involved in... It does say an arrow in the knee, though, just so we're clear. As I recall, you used to get involved in quite a few of those. I thought for a while that you intended to go through life with your sword half drawn. I was an excitable youth, the Count admitted, opening the broad door of the top of the steps. He led them down a long hallway to a room of imposing size with a large blazing fireplace at each end. Great curving stone arches supported the ceiling. The floor was of polished black stone, scattered with fur rugs, and the walls, arches, and ceiling were whitewashed in gleaming contrast. Heavy carved chairs of dark brown wood sat here and there, and a great table with an iron candelabra in its center stood near the fireplace at one end. A dozen or so leather-bound books were scattered on its polished surface. Books, Reldigan? Mr. Wolf said in amazement, as he and the others removed their cloaks and gave them to the servants, who immediately appeared. You have mellowed, my friend. The Count smiled at the old man's remark. I'm forgetting my manners, Wolf apologized. My daughter, Polgara. Paul, this is Count Reldigan, an old friend. My lady, the Count acknowledged with an exquisite bow. My house is honored. Aunt Paul was about to reply when two young men burst into the room, arguing heatedly. You're an idiot, Berentane. The first, a dark-haired youth in a scarlet doublet, snapped. It may please thee to think so, Torreson. The second, a stout young man with pale, curly hair and wearing a green and yellow striped tunic, replied. But whether it please thee or not, Astoria's future is in Mimbrate hands. The rancorous announcements and sulphurous rhetoric shall not alter that fact. Don't thee me or thou me, Berentane, the dark-haired one sneered. Your imitation Mimbrate courtesy turns my stomach. Gentlemen, that's enough, Count Reldigan said sharply, rapping his cane on the stone floor. If you two are going to insist on discussing politics, I'll have you separated, forcibly if necessary. The two young men scowled at each other and then stalked off to opposite sides of the room. My son, Torreson, the Count the Count admitted apologetically, indicating the dark-haired youth, and his cousin, Berentane, the son of my late wife's brother. They've been wrangling like this for 2 weeks now. I had to take their swords away from them the day after Berentane arrived. The Count is quite tired and requires a drink and a nap. Political discussion is good for the blood, my lord, Silk observed, especially in the winter. The heat keeps the veins from clogging up. The Count chuckled at the little man's remark. Prince Keldar of the Royal House of Drasnia, Mr. Wolf introduced Silk. Your Highness, the Count responded, bowing. Silk winced slightly. Please, my lord, I have spent a lifetime running from that mode of address, and I'm sure that my connection with the royal family embarrasses my uncle almost as much as it embarrasses me. The Count laughed again with easy good nature. Why don't we all adjourn to the dining table, he suggested. 2 fat deer have been turning on spits in my kitchen since daybreak, and I recently obtained a cask of red wine from southern Talnedra. Hey, BOC, thanks for the host, dude. What's going on? Guys, can we get a shout-out for BOC? Please. I think you have to do that one the old-fashioned way. I should set that one up. The Count laughed with easy good nature. Why don't we all adjourn to the dining table, he suggested. 2 fat deer have been turning on spits in my kitchen since daybreak. Yeah, I don't think I have that one set up, Moose. Gotta do, there we go. Thank you very much. Guys, make sure you check out BOC's channel. He's a really good Rocket League player. way better than I am, and he plays a lot of other interesting stuff. Obviously playing some Battlegrounds, which I'm sure he's better at than me too. And I know he plays League of Legends. So if you like an action-packed stream with some cool stuff, check him out, man. He's a cool dude too. I like him a lot. I owe all of my Rocket League improvements to his advice. And my practice, of course, but mostly his advice. So, anyway. 2 fat deer have been turning on spits in my kitchen since daybreak, and I recently obtained a cask of red wines from southern Talnedra. As I recall, Belgarath has always had a great fondness for good food and fine wines. He hasn't changed, my lord, Aunt Pal told him. My father's terribly predictable, once you get to know him. The Count smiled and offered her his arm, and they all moved toward a door on the far side of the room. Tell me, my lord, Aunt Pal said, do you by chance have a bathtub in your house? Bathing in winter is dangerous, Lady Bulgara, the Count warned her. My lord, she stated gravely, I've been bathing winter or summer for more years than you could possibly imagine. Let her bathe, Reldigan, Mr. Wolf argued. Her temper deteriorates quite noticeably when she thinks she's getting dirty. A bath wouldn't hurt you either, old wolf, Aunt Pal retorted tartly. You're starting to get a bit strong from the downwind side. Mr. Wolf looked a bit injured. Much later, after they had eaten their fill of venison, gravy-soaked bread, and rich cherry tarts, Aunt Pal excused herself and went with a maidservant to oversee the preparation of her bath. The men all lingered at the table over their wine cups, their faces washed with golden light of the many candles in Reldigan's dining hall. Let me show you to your rooms, Torreson suggested to Leldrin and Garion, pushing back his chair and casting a look of veiled contempt across the table at Barentane. They followed him from the room and up a long flight of stairs toward the upper stories of the house. I don't want to offend you, Tor, Leldrin said as they climbed, but your cousin has some peculiar ideas. Torreson snorted. Barentane's a jackass. He thinks he can impress the Mimbrates by imitating their speech and by fawning on them. His dark face was angry in the light of the candle he carried to light their way. Why should he want to? Leldrin asked. He's desperate for some kind of holding he can call his own, Torreson replied. My mother's brother has very little land to leave him. The fat idiot's all calf-eyed over the daughter of one of the barons in his district, and since the baron won't even consider a landless suitor, Barentane's trying to wheedle an estate from the Mimbrate governor. He'd swear fealty to the ghost of Kal Torak himself if he thought it would get him land. Doesn't he realize that he hasn't got a chance? Leldrin inquired. There are too many land-hungry Mimbrate knights around for the governor for him to even think of giving an estate to an historian. I told him the same thing myself, Torreson declared with scathing contempt. But there's no reasoning with him. His behavior degrades our entire family. Leldrin shook his head commiseratingly as they reached the upper hall. He looked around him then. I have to talk with you, Tor, he blurted, his voice dropping to a whisper. Torreson looked at him sharply. My father's committed me to Belgarath's service in a matter of great importance. Leldrin hurried on in that same hushed voice. I don't know how long we'll be gone, so you and the others will have to kill Corodulin without me. Torreson's eyes went wide with horror. We're not alone, Leldrin, he said in a strangled voice. I'll go down to the other end of the hall, Garion said quickly. No, Leldrin replied firmly, taking hold of Garion's arm. Garion's my friend, Tor. I have no secrets from him. Leldrin, please, Garion protested. I'm not an historian. I'm not even an Arend, and I don't want to know what you're planning. But you will know, Garion, as proof of my trust in you, Leldrin declared. Next summer, when Corodulin journeys to the ruined city of Voastor to hold court there for the 6 weeks that maintain the fiction of Arendish unity, we're going to ambush him on the highway. Eldarin! Torreson gasped, his face turning white. But Leldrin was already plunging on. It won't be just a simple ambush, Garion. This will be a masterstroke at Mimbrae's heart. We're going to ambush him in the uniforms of Talnedran legionnaires and cut him down with Talnedran swords. Our attack will force Mimbrae to declare war on the Talnedran Empire, and Talnedra will crush Mimbrae like an eggshell. Mimbrae will be destroyed, and Astoria will be free. Natchak will have you killed for this, Leldrin, Torreson said. We've all been sworn to secrecy on a blood oath. Tell the Murgo I have spit on his oath, Eldarin said hotly. What need have Astorian patriots for a Murgo henchman? He's providing us with gold, you blockhead, Taurus enraged, almost beside himself. We need his good red gold to buy uniforms, the swords, and to strengthen the backbones of some of our weaker friends. I don't need weaklings with me, Eldarin said intensely. A patriot does what he does for the love of his country, not for Angarak gold. Garion's mind was moving quickly now. His moment of stunned amazement had passed. There was a man in Sherrick, he recalled. The Earl of Jarvik. He also took Murgo gold and plotted to kill a king. The two stared at him blankly. Something happens to a country when you kill the king, Garion explained. No matter how bad the king is, or how good the people are who kill him, the country falls apart for a while. Everything is confused, and there's nobody to point the country in any one direction. Then, if you start a war between that country and another one at the same time, you just add to that much more to the confusion. I think that if I were a Murgo, that is exactly the kind of confusion I'd want to see in all the kingdoms of the West. Garion listened intently to his own voice, almost in amazement. There was a dry, dispassionate quality in it that he had instantly recognized. From the time of his earliest memories, that voice had always been there, inside his mind, occupying some quiet, hidden corner, telling him when he was wrong or foolish. But the voice had never actively interfered before in his dealings with other people. Now, however, it spoke directly to these two young men, patiently explaining. Angarak gold isn't what it seems to be, he went on. There's a kind of power in it that corrupts you. Maybe that's why it's the color of blood. I'd think about that before I accepted any more red gold from this Murgo Natchak. Why do you suppose he's giving you gold and helping you with this plan of yours? He's not a Astorian, so patriotism couldn't have anything to do with it, could it? I'd think about that, too. Eldarin and his cousin looked suddenly troubled. I'm not going to say anything about this to anybody, Garion said. He told me about it in confidence, and I really wasn't supposed to hear about it anyway. Remember that there's a lot more going on in the world right now than what's happening here in Erendia. I would think I'd like to get some sleep. Show me where my bed is. I'll leave you to talk things over all night if you'd like. All in all, Garion thought he'd handled the whole thing rather well. He'd planted a few doubts at the very least. He knew Arens well enough by now to realize that it probably wouldn't be enough to turn these two around. But it was a start. And ladies and gentlemen, if it was a start, that will be our end for the evening. As we've gone a good 45 minutes over normal time, thanks to our internet outage, but I would like to thank you for hanging out with me tonight as we really got into the longest journey. I really enjoyed that tonight. It's really gotten good. And as we continue with Queen of Sorcery, Book 2 of the Belgariad. So, thank you very much for starting the week off on the right way with me here at Game Life Game. My name is Joe, and I want to remind you that life is what happens between games. So whatever you do today or tonight, tomorrow before I see you again, just be good to the people you come across each day. Take care of each other. And remember, everybody's really the same. We all just want to be happy, and even though we go about it in different ways and have different needs and different fears, that's really the important one. We all just want to be happy and feel loved. So love whoever you come across today, and everything's going to be alright. Thank you very much, guys. I will see you tomorrow night. Tomorrow we'll be playing The Witcher, and we will continue with 2 more chapters of Queen and Sorcery. It's been my pleasure as always. BOC Chicken, thank you for the host. Moose, Jaredin, everybody else who hosted, thank you very much for the host. Hope you guys have enjoyed the stream, and thank you for your patience with the interruption tonight. Hopefully tomorrow night will be smooth and interruption-free. With love, all I have to say is, see ya!